Welcome to the Divorce to Dynamite podcast. I'm Michelle O'Neill. Today I want to talk about the financial hardships of women after divorce. And specifically, I want to talk about the gender pay gap. There was an article that came out on the Forbes website that I found really interesting, and I think it has so many implications to women after divorce. So with the gender pay gap, I think it's helpful to understand that there are two types of definitions of what we're talking about when we talk about the difference in pay between men and women in the workforce and how that affects women short-term and long-term. And so one of those is called the controlled gender pay gap, and the other is called the uncontrolled gender pay gap. The controlled gender pay gap is the difference between men and women's pay in the same job. And the uncontrolled gender pay gap is the difference between the overall difference in the marketplace as a whole between men and women, not necessarily in specific jobs, but just overall statistics as a whole in the marketplace. So I want to talk about the uncontrolled gender pay gap first, because those statistics are just incredible and insane. And whenever we finish the discussion today, I'm going to give women after divorce, I'm going to give you guys 3 tips that I think can help. You know, we can't control these wide-ranging statistics, and there's very little that any one of us can do, from our seat at the table to change these broad brush problems that our society is facing. Over time, the statistics are gradually getting better, and we can help that, from our standpoint of just making micro efforts to help, at where we sit over time. Those little bitty efforts that each of us make where we are at help the bigger effort over time. But I have some ideas and some suggestions. So I'm going to give you 3 tips at the end of this talk that I think can help you take action items and action steps that can help you overcome the problem in your situation. So let's talk about the problem first, and then we'll talk about the solutions. All right, are we ready? Let's go. So the uncontrolled gender pay gap, here's the problem. Women overall make 84 cents to the $1 that every man makes. Now, that's a better statistic than it was 10 or 20 years ago, but it's still pretty dang bad, right? I mean, that is a 16% difference of women over men, just in general. And we're not saying same job, same everything, all the controlled factors. We're just saying, in general, in America, women make 84 cents to every dollar that a man makes. Now, for women of color, ladies, those stats are even worse. For black women make 64 cents to $1 that every man makes. Latina women make 55 cents to every $1 that a man makes. Over the course of a career, a 20-year-old woman will lose approximately $400,000 over the course of her career just because of the pay gap. Now, what happens when you get an education? When a woman gets an education, we would think that the statistics would get better, right? We would think that those statistics would get better. We would think, ladies, that by getting our education, that the pay gap would narrow. But we are wrong. Statistically speaking, women with a bachelor's degree compared to men with an education, the pay gap is wider. Women with a bachelor's degree make 79% or 79 cents on the dollar to the $1 that every man makes. 79 cents. So that is a wider pay gap than the average overall statistic. So the pay gap widens with more education. Isn't that just incredible? Just incredible. Now, let's talk about the controlled statistics. So when you look at men and women in the same jobs, and you look at the gender pay gap, entry-level jobs, women make 82 cents to every dollar that a man makes. Now, there is a little good news here. There are some types of jobs, some professions where women actually earn more than men. So ladies, listen up. If you want to earn more than men, here's some jobs you can go get. Compliance officer, vocational nurses, wholesale and retail buyers. Teaching assistants make about the same as men. And in these jobs, there are very, very small differences. Physical and social sciences and physical therapists. So those are the types of jobs where the pay is either the pay difference is very small, or the gap is either equal or women make more. The largest pay gap, the types of jobs where when you control for the same job, the same qualifications, the same everything, where the difference between men and women's pay is the largest. Real estate brokers, not agents, real estate brokers. Women make 60 cents to every dollar that a man makes. And in personal finance, women make 50 cents to every dollar that a man makes. So ladies, these, like on the macro view, on the wide view, like this is terrible. The good news is our mothers and grandmothers suffered way, way greater gender pay gap. We have come a long way. We have made great strides. And the statistics say that on the pace that we're on, we are catching up. We are making good strides. We are going to catch up. And in 10 or 20 years, those statistics ought to get to be about equal. But we each have to do our part right. And that's what I'm going to tell you. Those are the statistics I'm going to tell you. Those are the action items I'm going to give you. Now, there's another statistic that concerns me that affects kind of this long-term view. We know that women live longer than men. We know that on the average, the insurance companies have these actuaries that kind of predict how long men and women live on the average. Men live about an average of 76 years. That means some live longer, some live shorter. Women, on the other hand, live an average of about 80 years. The problem is, men, when they live to be about 76 years old, they tend to live a relatively healthier 76 years. Women tend to decline in health and live a little bit unhealthier as they age to that 80 years. So we tend to live longer without our partner, and we tend to need more help when we reach our elder years. That means we need more financial resources as we reach our elder years. However, the statistics say that women contribute 30% less to retirement and investments than men. So, ladies, not only are we making less money than men, we are contributing to retirement and investments for our future and our later years than men. this doesn't make sense. So, I mean, we can't control what happens, on this broad brush. There's not a whole lot that we can do to change these broad brush statistics. But I want to give you 3 action items that we can do right now on our home front today to change where we are at as individuals. First, educate yourself, upskill yourself. You have to take your own professional development into your own hands. It is not your boss's job to educate you. It is not society's job to educate you. You have to take the initiative to better yourself. You have to take those steps and motivate yourself to get the skills that you need to ask for your promotion, to get the better job, to change jobs, to do something that can make more money from where you're at right now. Number 2, negotiate assertively. And this is an area where, ladies, I really think that we can make extraordinary strides in affecting the financial hardships of women after divorce and of each of us after divorce that will greatly change these numbers, at least on an individual level. What does that mean? That means when you're going into a negotiation, when it's time to go in and ask for a raise, don't wait on your boss to initiate that conversation. Don't wait on your annual review, because your annual review may not come. Your boss may be busy and not get around to it. Initiate your annual review. Put some time on your boss's calendar. Ask for the time. Ask for the raise. But I think as women, we tend to approach those conversations emotionally. And I think that's where we may stumble some, is we take it personally. And I know I do this even myself. So you have to practice your negotiating skills. Keep the emotion out of it. Have tangible factors that you can point to that show that you have contributed to the success of the organization. You have improved your skills. You have done these tangible things that have succeeded in your job, that have shown that you have excelled, that have shown your worth to the company, that have proven you deserve a raise. Negotiate for that raise. Be prepared, especially if your boss is a man and negotiates like a man. Be prepared with your negotiating skills. Maybe have a practice run with a friend. Practice in advance what the response might be that comes back at you, and focus on those tangible criteria. Don't take it personally. Don't be emotional about it, and understand what your plan A and your plan B is. And number 3, network strategically. Always be networking. My daddy taught me, everything I learned about life, I learned from my mama, but everything I learned about business, I learned from my daddy. And my daddy taught me that the best time to be looking for a job was when you already had one and didn't need it. So be networking strategically all the time. Go to networking events for your industry. Go to group conferences. Go to whatever events. Anything that has to do with professional women. Meet people. Keep your Rolodex. I mean, back in the day, we had these little Rolodexes with the little cards in them. We don't have that anymore. But keep an index of some sort. Technology has all sorts of ways of doing that. But make sure you track your contacts and follow up. The follow-up is the key to networking, because if you meet somebody at an event and you never follow up, they're never going to remember who you are. And being memorable is the key to networking. So always be networking and always be connecting with other women and other people that you could come back across in the future. If that negotiation doesn't go very well and you don't get the raise, maybe you start putting out your feelers out in your network to see what's available for you out there that might give you the raise elsewhere. In our current market, in our current economy, there is very little loyalty in the job market. And while, we could have a whole other podcast and a whole other discussion about the pros and cons of loyalty to your company and loyalty in the job market, the reality is that you have to be looking out for you right now, because you are a single woman and maybe a single mom, and you've got to be making the most amount of money that you can make to get through your financial hardships. So you need to be keeping your feelers out there and keeping your network strong and following up with your people. Just a second about sponsors and mentors. In your network, you need to be looking for people that will sponsor you. Now, the difference between a sponsor and a mentor is somebody that's going to guide you, who's going to give you advice, who's going to, tell you based on their experiences, things that, can help you make strides in your career. A sponsor, on the other hand, is somebody who will say your name in a room that you're not in, who will help you get advantages that you would not otherwise have in a room that you are not in. Look for those ladies, look for those gentlemen who will sponsor you in rooms you're not in. Now, the key to sponsors and the key to mentors and having them is to also do the same. So find sponsors, find mentors, be sponsors, and be mentors. So the 3 keys in review to overcoming the financial hardships after divorce, to overcoming the gender pay gap after divorce, and helping yourself make those strides to help yourself financially. Educate and upskill yourself. Negotiate assertively for yourself, and network strategically. And I think if you implement those 3 skills, you can make a difference for yourself where maybe the statistics say otherwise. All right, that wraps up our podcast for today. Thank you for joining us. Please join us next time and share this podcast with your friends. Follow, subscribe, like, give a comment, give a little testimonial if you like what we're doing here. Thank you so much. Until next time.